Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Krista Kurlinkas, and I want to thank you so much for joining me. I am super excited to have you here today. I've worked for weeks on this special masterclass, and I can't wait to share it with you. Now, because you took the time to show up here today, I bet you are likely the type of person who is willing to invest in yourself for this time together in order to learn something that can become a crucial piece of your revenue generation if you do it right. Because I have designed this masterclass to be immediately actionable, I've created a webinar workbook that will give you a place to take notes on the 6 steps and write down your ideas for how you will implement them as soon as the webinar is over. You can download your action guide workbook using the download link to the right of this video, or you can download your workbook from the very first email you received after registering for the webinar, or from bit.ly/grant action. So remember, it's bit.ly/grant action. Okay, I'll give you a second to do that, and then we will come back to this. Since I want you to get the most you possibly can from this training, before we get started, I'd love for you to turn off everything in the background of your computer, including email systems, Skype, music, and any other programs that are open. That way you won't have any problems with buffering, and you'll have great streaming quality in this class. The second thing is that I want you to silence your phone, close your door, and take this time for yourself so you can learn some new grant writing strategies. I know it can be hard, but if you focus with me here, I promise I'll make it worth every second of your time. All right, you probably have your action guide downloaded by now. Before we start going through the 6 steps, I want you to turn to the very last page and fill in the first box, which asks you about what you could do if you had a grant writing system that helped you generate consistent revenue. You don't have to share that information with me or anyone in this training, but just write it down there and keep it in mind as we go through these 6 steps. This is what you are working toward today. Okay, so before we get started with my strategies, I'm really curious. Have you applied for a grant before? So go ahead and type it in the chat box. Have you ever applied for a grant to support your nonprofit work, or maybe your academic research, or if you work for a government agency, a program that you run there? Okay, so I'm looking at your comments and I'm seeing a lot of no's, which is perfect. You are in the right place. But I'm also seeing quite a few yeses. Now, for those of you who have written a grant before, those yeses, are you happy with either your success rate or the amounts that you're winning per award? Okay, so some of you are saying no. I see a bunch of no's, even some sad faces. I don't want you to be sad. We are going to fix this right away. So for all of you that have written grants and are not happy with your success rate or are not happy with the dollar amounts you're receiving, we're going to talk about how to boost that rate and how to increase the dollar amounts you win on each grant. Now, how about those of you who have never written a grant before, but really needed to? I want to know what has stopped you. So go ahead and type in the comments, what has stopped you from writing your first grant besides you've never needed to before? There's an answer that always pops up in the chat when I ask this, and it's not knowing where to find grants. Not having access to good search tools stops a lot of us in our tracks, and I'm going to talk about that. I promise you, searching for grants can be easier and more affordable than you think. So we will definitely get into that right at the beginning. But I'm also seeing things in the comments like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what is required in a grant application. So if you are confused about what to include in a grant proposal, I'm going to tell you exactly what is in most grant proposals. These are all real concerns for sure that you're sharing with me, and I'm going to cover them today in this training. Okay, now I have a quick story for you. If you don't know me, if you're new to me, You may not know that I am a grant writing consultant. I own Write Good, Grant Writing and Communications for the Greater Good, and I work with clients around the country. So I want to share one quick client story with you all. I truly do remember it like it was yesterday. It was October 25th, 2016. And a new client had contacted me about writing a federal grant. They were a small community college program for my home state of West Virginia, and they knew that I specialized in this type of grant. So we scheduled our consultation call for November 1st. Within 3 days of that phone call, I had a signed contract to write a federal grant application for them. But here's the catch. This grant application, a federal grant application, was due on November 11th, 7 days from the date the contract began. Here is the project description and the date of service straight from our contract. So you can see my name up there. It was Krista Bryson. I got married, and it's changed now, but this is between me and Pierpont Community and Technical College, and it is for the research and writing of one Appalachian Regional Commission Power Grant pre-application. Now, the pre-application only had a few questions less than the full application, which I already knew because I had written several of these before. So normally when I wrote these, it was about 20 single-spaced pages of narrative. That doesn't count the attachments, the SF-424 and all those standard forms you have to fill out. It didn't include the budget. And finally, you can see at the end of this, the date of service was from November 4th to November 11th. Now, at this point in my business, I had never written a grant for this much money this quickly, and with a client I had never worked with before, ever. Most grant writers would tell you this was a losing proposition, an unreasonable request. The last time I wrote this, I spent several months working with a client to write this grant. And still, that last client's grant for way less money, and I mean way less, was not awarded. After all of that hard work, months of work, nothing. Now, you might be wondering, what was I thinking? Was I worried about doing this in 1 week? Was I stressed? Yeah. Not only that, I knew that this new client was taking on a big expense in hiring me, and the project was high stakes. If they didn't get the funding, one of their programs might run out of money. So why did I think this was worth the risk? How could I have possibly believed that I could pull this off in time and pull it off well? So what happened with that $1 million grant application I wrote in 1 week? It was awarded. The president of the college sent me this lovely thank you letter. My client won over $1 million from the Appalachian Regional Commission, and then taking that grant narrative and revising it a bit to work for another application through the Economic Development Administration, they later won an additional $700,000, all to work towards this one program. Their program went from struggling to keep going to racing to keep up with all of the funding they had coming in the door. They were new to grant writing, but I was able to help them plan their program and convey it artfully in the grant applications. And they became $1.7 million richer. I realized I had cracked the code with grant writing. I knew the formula, and I knew that I could do it again and again and more efficiently. And that's what I did. Grants can truly be the foundation of your revenue stream once you know how to do them right. Now, that doesn't mean everyone can win millions in 1 week. It means I have a system that I teach that is effective and replicable. You can have the most deserving community and cause, design the most effective approach to solving a problem, hire the most qualified staff. But if you don't have this one thing, you literally have zero chance of sustaining any part of your budget with grants. Your time and money is wasted. The good you want to do in the world is not happening. Applying for as many grants as you can does not guarantee you will win any of them. To get massive results from grants, the secret is to turn your grant writing process into a simple system based on a proven strategy. So here's what I'm going to teach you as we jump into the specifics. I'm going to teach you my 6-step complete grant writing system. Step 1 is the searching and planning step. Step 2, the telling your story step. Step 3, the defining your needs step. Step 4, the designing your program step. Step 5, the budgeting your program step. And step 6, the follow-up step. Ultimately, I want to show you how to win the next grant and the next grant and the next grant after that, and in larger amounts than you've ever won before. I want you to imagine the feeling if you were able to have a grant writing system in your nonprofit that generated revenue for you over and over again. I can tell you on behalf of my clients and on behalf of students I've worked with that it is a pretty amazing experience. Well, today is the day I am going to help you do just that. Let's start with step 1, the searching and planning step. Specifically, finding grant makers that can't wait to fund your work. I am going to give you the 3 proven search strategies that I use to design grant opportunity lists for my clients. The first strategy is to search grant databases. I know so many people, even big nonprofits, that don't have access to grant databases, or do have access but don't conduct strategic searches for grants. Many people just look out for grants in email announcements, listen for word of mouth from colleagues, or just check into free online sources. Now, these things are all great, but they should only be your secondary search strategies and not the primary strategy you use to find grants. So your first tool is a grant database. Typically, you will have to pay for access to a database like GrantStation, but I promise you it will come back to you more than tenfold in Grants 1 because these databases allow you to be 100 times more strategic in your search with their advanced search features, and they include grant makers that you won't be able to find in a Google search. It will save you hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars. So you can Google grant databases and find quite a few, but I highly recommend GrantStation, which is what I use for all of my clients and have been very successful with. You can also access the Foundation Center's grants databases free at public libraries around the country. So if you Google that, you will be able to search by your zip code and find a library with access near you. This is what some of my students do. There is also grants.gov, which only has grants by the 26 federal granting agencies, but they do tend to be large grants, and they're open to more applicants than foundation grants. Strategy number 2 is to research the grant maker's past awards. So once you find a few grant opportunities that look like a good fit based on your search in the database, the key to getting into the grant-making agency's or foundation's head is to see what they have funded for the past 3 years. Now, I want to take a step back and say that these strategies apply no matter what kind of applicant you are, a nonprofit, a researcher, a government agency, a business, an academic institution. For federal grants, they always have a page with links to recent awardees or even a searchable database with that information. And for foundations, you can go to this website, Foundation Center's 990 Finder. If you just Google that, you will find this tool that allows you to search by the grant maker's name and state. It will pull up old tax forms, usually for at least 3 years back, and you can find out who they've made grants to and for how much. From there, you can take that info and evaluate whether there are awardees of similar organizational size, mission and strategy, and geographic location. And because this also tells you how much they were awarded, you can decide how much you should ask for with this information in mind. And that's important because some grant makers won't award anything to you if they think you're asking for too much. So rather than giving you a lower amount than your request, they just won't give you anything at all. And finally, this is an incredibly important strategy. Contact the grant maker personally. This is the best way to save yourself time, money, and heartache. There is nothing worse than working like crazy on a grant application, only to find out it was nowhere near a good fit to start with. So when you call or email, introduce yourself, your work, and the organization, program, or project you need funding for. Ask them politely if they would be interested in receiving a proposal from you. Taking the time to do this will also help you endear yourself to the grant maker, because not enough applicants take the time to do this step. So if you do this and have a nice conversation with them before submitting an application, they will know you are serious and you will have made that initial human connection that means so much to many grant makers. Remember, this strategy is all about developing relationships, and that takes more than just a written proposal. Now, once you've found that perfect grant opportunity, made your initial contact with your funder, and gotten the okay, we're interested, please send us more, it's time to put on your storytelling hat for the history section of the proposal. This is when you tell the funder about your reason for being, whether you are part of an organization or are applying as an individual. You likely have some kind of aha moment, a founding story about how your organization came to do the work it does, or how you came to do the research or art that you do. This is when you really grab their interest and maybe even their heartstrings, and everybody has a story. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how passionate are you about the founding story for your organization, or the story of how you came to the idea for your research, business, or art? Share your number with me in the chat box. A lot of people who are on this webinar are going to be saying 10. And I'm sure you have a great founding or aha story, because you wouldn't be doing the work that can get funded if you didn't. Most people who work in this field are already super passionate about what they do. However, you have to be able to shape that story effectively, so it's compelling not just to you, but to funders. So I want you to take your story and shape it using basic narrative structure. Why use this structure? Well, as a rhetorician, I can tell you that narrative is one of the most effective means of conveying and eliciting emotion in your readers. And emotion is an essential component of a convincing argument. This understanding of persuasion tracks all the way back to Aristotle, and now studies by neurologists show that stories, particularly the ones that implement what's called the hero's journey, encourage oxytocin synthesis. And neurologists call this the moral molecule because when it is released, it establishes trust. So the very first thing you have to do to employ this narrative structure is set the scene for your story. This is known as exposition. Here, you tell about the surrounding circumstances of the founding of your organization or discovery of your research idea. This is information like the time, the place, the population, cause, or field. Then you have the complication, which is the need or problem you identified with that specific population, cause, or field of research. Then you have the building of the problem or the rising action, which can be either events or further discoveries you made about the problem or the source of the problem. Then you have the tipping point or the climax that really grabs the reader and makes them say, wow, this problem really has an impact. Look how it has affected these people. Or maybe it offers a revelation about the cause of the problem that has never been made clear before. And then we have the falling action, which is the founding of your organization or start of your research or opening of your business or invention of a new technology or whatever awesome thing it is you do. Of course, that's followed in narrative structure by a resolution. But we actually aren't going to show a resolution in this section because we are still in the middle of solving the issue. If there were no problem, we wouldn't be asking for funding to fix it. If it was resolved, we wouldn't be here. So what you can do is imply a resolution, which is your program, idea, research, or product. So let's see how this worked in a real-world example. So here is the example from a successful research and tech development grant application I wrote with a client for a grant meant to solve what's called the word gap. a language learning and development disparity found among low-income children. Now, this response is a bit unique in that it relies upon some prior knowledge because this history question, or how did you arrive at your idea question as it was phrased, came towards the end of the application. So readers already knew a bit more about the problem and proposed solution because usually this will be among the first questions or sections in a grant application. But this is the story section that nearly every grant will ask you to do. So here we go. My client started telling her story by setting the scene. As an applied linguist, I research language acquisition and bilingualism. Currently, my team and I are conducting a study funded by the Kranis Innovation Fund, in which we are testing whether bilingualism helps premature born children in the area of executive function. Executive function regulates key cognitive processes, such as paying attention and reasoning. This is her narrative's exposition. She is placing the reader within the field and demonstrating some authority and credibility by mentioning that she is already being funded for a related research project. She also explains the relevance of the research she's doing in that last sentence about what executive function does. Then she goes on to explain what their initial research in that study has found, which is that there is actually a problem, that bilingualism and the higher executive functioning that comes with it relies upon children first being fluent in their home language. Among her study participants, that language is Spanish. Further complicating the initial problem is that families are told by their doctors not to use Spanish at home, which inhibits their attempts at raising their children bilingually. So this section is the complication, the part that sparks readers' interests and gets them to wonder about a problem that has not been addressed. After explaining the problem, she builds in tension and tells a real-world story about one of her friends. She says the emphasis on English language acquisition and neglect of Spanish language acquisition is evident in daycare centers as well. Recently, I accompanied my friend to pick up her 18-month-old son from his daycare center in Miami. Their caregivers, who were Spanish speakers, only spoke English when interacting with the children. Now, this is the rising action. Our attention here is heightened and we're waiting for the big revelation because we are so used to narrative structures that we know how to emotionally react and anticipate what's to come. Also, by telling this little micro-narrative and putting people, real individuals in it, it really grabs the reader's attention. So then the story reaches that tipping point. She says, again, about the daycare center workers. Their speech was not syntactically complex and was made up of mostly one-word directives because it was a language in which they were less fluent. As the majority of the children at the daycare were Hispanic, I asked, why are these caregivers not using their native language, Spanish? A caregiver explained to me, because we are expected to use English. So this section really effectively uses quotes to build up to a revelation. These caregivers are made to use English by their employers, even though it is resulting in less syntactically complex language. Now, as we would see in the rest of her proposal, these children would actually have better Spanish and much better English if they were first taught in their caregiver's native language of Spanish. That is a research revelation, and in terms of the narrative structure, the climax. Following the climax portion of the narrative, we see the falling action, which is my client brainstorming ways to increase language exposure to Hispanic infants. So even though we don't have a resolution to this story yet, it's implied in the potential creation of the phone application Háblame Bebé, which will help caregivers provide this language exposure and interaction. So there you have it, the falling action with the implied resolution. Now, we just went through an incredibly effective and compelling story that won in a huge grant competition, which I will tell you about more later. But we are going to continue to use this example in the next step of my 6-step strategy, which is how to prove the urgency and significance of your work and skyrocket your success rate. In this step, we are talking about providing an expert-level explanation of the need or problem your work will be addressing. Now, I'm going to show you an example from the Research and Development grant again, but I can promise you I get this detailed and technical and research-focused in every grant I write, even for simple foundation grants. So, let's jump right in. In your statement of need, you absolutely must include and properly cite secondary research and primary research if at all possible. Secondary research is research you can find in books, articles, and government statistics. This is research using data you didn't collect yourself. It's best to use research that is peer-reviewed, up-to-date, and rooted in widely accepted theory in the field. Primary research is research you did by going out and collecting the quantitative or qualitative data yourself. If you have some prior research or have been doing work in this nonprofit sector or research field for some time, you can talk about your previous research or program participants. You can include interview summaries and quotes, that's qualitative, and numerical data, that's quantitative, that you collected from your own work. Primary research is great for establishing need in your specific geographic region or among your specific population that might not be covered in existing research. And that leads us into the second strategy for the Statement of Needs section, which is proving there is a gap in the field. That means that you have found a problem that either isn't being addressed at all, isn't being addressed for a specific demographic or geographic location, or isn't being addressed with an adequate strategy or your particular strategy. And finally, you need to use this section to demonstrate your expertise by citing the most important sources on this issue, showing you understand them well, and proving that you can use the data and theories to design a smart and effective solution. Now, let's look at an example. This is a highly abbreviated section of the Statement of Need from that winning language research and app development grant that we just talked about. Now, the real one gets much more complex and it's longer, but I can use this to teach you the basics of what you need to do in your own Statement of Need. In order for Hispanic children to develop basic communicative oral skills in English, these skills need to be consolidated in their maternal language as well. There are many cognitive benefits to this type of sequential bilingualism, some that even help reduce the academic risks associated with low socioeconomic status. So here, the writer has both summarized the problem and theoretical solution to the problem in just 2 sentences. So, you don't need to and shouldn't include large sections just summarizing research. So she very effectively just summarizes the overall findings here and incorporates them right into the argument in her own words and uses these in-text citations to show that she knows her stuff. So you don't need to and shouldn't include large sections of summaries of research. You can simply take the overall findings of the research and incorporate them as support for your claims in your own words and use in-text citations, just listing the author's name and the date of the research publication to show that you really know your stuff. So here she's really demonstrating that she has done the background research and has expertise because of her broad knowledge of this specific topic and field. After explaining the problem, she provides the impetus for her work, saying, "It is imperative to promote awareness about these facts, as Hispanics are the fastest growing minority group in the U.S. and make up 30% of those living in poverty. Their word gap must be addressed. Apps can be enormously successful in promoting vocabulary growth in children if they generate talk time." So here, she is actually providing even more secondary research to establish the usefulness of her proposed solution. Next, she explicitly tells her readers what is missing. She says some apps do exist for this purpose. Daily Vroom educates, encourages talk time, and gives conversation ideas. Talk With Me Baby is an app currently being developed by the state of Georgia for the same purpose. Both, however, are in English. Neither incorporates tracking capacity to monitor talk time or vocabulary growth. Háblame Bebé will be the first app to do so. So, the lack of an application that focuses on Spanish-speaking families with children is where she finds her space to innovate. This is called the gap in the field that she will fill. So there it is, a highly compelling statement of need in just 3 slides. Now, if she can do it, so can you. Now let's move on to the 4th step in writing a winning grant proposal, which is how to design an impeccable program and outdo your competitors. The reason we really have to focus on the program design is because sometimes you are creating a new program or project in response to a specific grant opportunity, and also because sometimes you have a great program or organization already, but with some small improvements, it could become a stellar program that grant makers can't wait to put their names behind. Okay, so in this step, you need to first have inspiring but realistic objectives. So let's take a look at one of the goals of the Spanish language app we've been using as an example. Their long-term goal is to increase the Spanish and English vocabulary of children in the experimental group. This goal gets at the core problem that this proposal addresses, the word gap. Then, to make it an objective, we need to both quantify the goal and add a date or time period for reaching that goal. So we've added by 10% after 12 months of app use. Now, I'm not a linguist, so I can't personally speak to whether this is a realistic objective for 12 months, but you need to do base objectives, so benchmark them and figure out what is realistic for your program. Next, you need to connect each goal and objective to a strategy that you will use to accomplish that goal and objective. The best and easiest way to do this is to use a logic model. Whether you use an online template or whether you just sketch this out by hand, it can really help you design a thorough and sound program that funders want to support. So let's take a look at a real example from our language app grant. Here you can see that each outcome, the short, medium, and long-term outcomes on the right, are supported by inputs that then support the activities that will be evaluated for their effectiveness by the measures. So the idea behind a logic model is that it allows us to posit a theory of change. So if we have funding to design the app and research participants and researchers and cell phones with the app on them, then we can use all of those resources to train participants to use the app, get them to use it, and then conduct research on their use and results. Then we can measure the effect of that intervention through data from the app, user feedback, and interviews. All of this then will result in people engaging with the app and therefore talking to their children more in their first language, which will then result in increased Spanish and English vocabulary among children. See how that works? Nothing is left out, nothing is assumed. So this then allows you to make if-then statements in the program design in order to explain the strategies you are proposing in terms of the results that you believe they will have. And that belief also needs to be backed up by researchers. For example, if caregivers are prompted to speak with their babies on a regular basis, then they will increase their talk time and interaction in their heritage language with their babies. Then from there, you can start thinking about what inputs or resources you need to implement these strategies. So that naturally leads us right into how to create an airtight budget, which is extremely important because it can be the #1 limiting factor in the success of your grant proposal. So let's jump in. The very first thing you need to do is map out every expense you will have if you do the program or project exactly as you've described it. The best way to do this is to create a T-chart with every strategy you are going to implement on one side and every expense you will incur when implementing that strategy on the other. So go through your grant proposal and make a bulleted list of everything you say you will do with this funding. Then on the other side, list what you will have to buy or who you will have to pay to do what you say you will do. So for example, if we are going to develop the language learning app, we will need to hire researchers to determine how to design it and hire designers and developers to shape and bring that vision to life. Then if we are going to do research on the impact, we have to find participants and meet with them, as well as give them resources to use the app. So when you do this, I want you to go back and check, double check, and triple check that you have everything covered so you don't miss anything and come up short. Next, you need to benchmark your expenses. So this step eliminates a big obstacle for many of my clients, which is that they have no idea how much anything costs, and often they simply guess. So let me tell you right now, that is not the way to go. This is what your grantmaker does all day, every day. So if an expense sounds like way too much or way too little, it is a red flag and could very well be the end of your proposal. So do some research, check online, reach out to people in your network who do similar work, or reach out to the grantmaker if you can to see what expenses they find reasonable. Sometimes they can and will give you guidance on this. And if you're buying equipment or hiring contractors, get quotes in advance. Come into the budget with as much knowledge as you possibly can. And finally, you need to show evidence of sustainability in your budget. Now, this comes into the revenue part of the budget equation, in which you show other sources of incoming funding. That could be earned income, other grants, donors, or other means. This can be difficult when you're unsure about your funding, but it will actually go a long way with funders because they want to see work sustained and don't want to be expected to sustain it all on their own. So here you might actually need to do some background hustling to get other grants or funding. Maybe you can go to your biggest funder and say, if we get this $25,000 grant, can you commit to a matching donation of $25,000 or $12,500? That way, if you don't get the grant, there's no commitment. But if you do, the donor donates and they get the prestige of being affiliated with a program winning big grants. So this does require some initial work, but I promise you it is incredibly important to grant makers. All right, we are finally in the last step, which is the follow-up step. Now, in this step, you are continuing the work you started in step 1 by reaching out to the grant maker before even submitting a grant. This is the key to winning grants from them again, or winning one the next time if you didn't get an award this time. Okay, in your follow-up, win or lose, you always send them a thank you email. Be kind and gracious. Remember, if you don't get the grant, and you will not win every single grant, that's just the reality of grant writing. It is not a reflection on you or the quality of your work. There are so many factors that go into their decisions. All you can do is show up as your very best, which I have been teaching you to do throughout this masterclass. The second thing you should do is respectfully ask for any feedback they're able to provide with respect to the application. Keep the request that simple. You don't need to add any explanation or justification to your request for feedback. And finally, see if they would be willing to be on your newsletter list or receive mailings from you so they can keep up with what you're doing. This is how you keep them interested and stay front of mind with them over time. But again, be nice, and if they say no, thank them and move on. Now, when you do win a grant, and you will because you have carefully followed my strategies, first of all, congratulations. Now, you need to send the grant maker both a formal thank you letter signed by your executive director or yourself if you're applying independently. Since that will take some time to get to them, if they also send you an email notification of the award, then send them a thank you email with the thank you letter attached. Then you need to show them some love on social media, in a press release, on your website, and in print materials, depending on the kind of work you do. For example, if you're a performing arts organization, you might list them as a sponsor on some of your performance programs. And finally, if you are required to do grant reporting or site visits, put just as much work and consideration into those efforts as you did the original grant proposal, because these evaluations will factor into their decision whether to continue funding you in the future. So, what do you think? Are you starting to understand that when you implement a grant search, writing, and follow-up system, not only are you putting together a standard grant narrative for your program or project, you will also start to win grants on a consistent basis and open yourself up to winning much larger grant awards. That would be pretty amazing for your nonprofit, research, or business, right? It's your time. I want you to know that grants can change your nonprofit, your academic research, or even your government agency. But you've got to know exactly what to do in order to create a solid grant writing system. And that's where I come in. So, do you want to know how I wrote a successful $1 million grant application in just 7 days? Do you want to know how to win more than ever on your next grant application? Well, there are two options really. There's complicated and confusing and takes you a lot of trial and error, probably years to get it right. Or there is simple and strategic, which is what I'm offering you inside my Grant Writing Made Easy course. Grant Writing Made Easy is the complete A to Z blueprint for creating a high-converting grant writing system that floods your grant list with perfect opportunities, builds massive trust and value with grant makers through your writing, and puts your funding on autopilot. Grant Writing Made Easy is the absolute fastest way to get big results with your grant proposals. So here's what you'll create inside the course. A comprehensive grant opportunity list full of grant makers who would love to fund your work. A complete grant proposal that will wow funders. An easy system that you can repeat again and again for writing new grant proposals that will save you hundreds of hours of work. And finally, you can even create a stronger program or project design that will help you get much bigger grants. I'm talking 6 figures plus. And here is what you will get inside the course. The complete grant writing system planner to take you step by step through this process. All trainings available immediately so you don't have to wait for things to be released week by week. You'll get over 10 training videos, and these are not short videos, these are long videos. Over 250 pages of workbooks, checklists, and templates. Real grant examples including successful state, federal, and international grants, as well as foundation grants. And quarterly content updates in which we give you new instructional materials to help you improve your work. So here is a quick overview of what is in this course, and you'll notice that each of these modules correspond one-to-one to the 6 simple steps that I just taught you. First, we have Module 1, Grant Search, Fit, and Planning. This is the longest module. There is a lot to planning, a lot to finding the right grants, but I'm going to teach you everything you need to know and how to focus on the ones that you are most likely to win. Next, we have the organizational or individual history. So individuals if you're applying as an artist or individual researcher. And in this section, you're going to learn how to tell a compelling story while still getting all of the necessary facts in there. In Module 3, we are talking statement of need. So this is statement of need or problem statement. And this is where you make your argument for the problem that you are addressing, that your work is going to solve. It involves a lot of research, but because I have a PhD in rhetoric and composition, this is what I do, and this is what I used to teach university writing courses in. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do incredibly compelling research writing. In Module 4, we have program design, and this is where experience in the nonprofit world really comes into play, and I teach you how to design more effective programs that are going to reach the outcomes that you tell grant makers you're going to reach. This is not just important for after you receive the grant, it's important for before you even apply. Because trust me, grant makers can tell when you've just thrown something together and it's not well thought out. I'm going to teach you how to avoid that. Then we have Module 5, which is Logic, Model, and Budget. So your logic model checks those if-then statements that we were talking about earlier and validates your program design. And then the budget is that necessary piece that most writers don't like to do, but I'm going to teach you all the different techniques for different types of budgets that you will come across. And then last, we have Module 6, which is all the little details, things you may not have thought about when you started writing the grant, but you need to know, like how to do an abstract or executive summary, how to write a thank you letter. We give you all of that with templates in this module. And I have had students tell me that they not only use this for grants, but that they got meetings with event sponsors just based on the letters that they learned to write in this module. You also get bonus number 1, which is 30 days of writing exercises. This is a $97 value, and this is really going to level up your writing skills so your grant proposals really stand out from the rest. You also get bonus number 2, which is the private members only Facebook group, and this is a $297 value. So you get instant access to this closed door group where I do regular Facebook Live Q&As. You'll gain unlimited insight by arranging peer review exchanges of your grant drafts and just asking others about grant opportunities, advice, anything you can think of about grants. This is a friendly and approachable group of like-minded grant writers who want to help each other. GrantStation is a grants database for the US, Canada, and some international grants, and it is normally $699 for an annual membership. But we have an exclusive deal with them that allows you to get an annual membership for $99 year-round. So if you want to go pro and implement all of the database search skills that I teach you in Module 1, this is for you. You also get 11 live writing workshops online with me and your classmates. Each year you have this for the lifetime of the course. So each month, this gives you the opportunity to get your grant drafted, revised, or edited live in class with me and other students. Together, we will learn in this live writing session how to write the best proposal for any given opportunity. I'm revising it live with you while asking questions, and you actually get to see how I think and how I write so that you are able to learn and replicate that on your own. Students have told me this is the most valuable part of the course. It's also so rare for an online course like this to have both permanent content that you can access right away at any time, as well as regular live classes that allow you to see and talk to other students in the course and the instructor and get feedback from all of us. We have had some of the most incredible learning moments together in these live courses because you get the benefit of talking to other people with experience in grant writing and the nonprofit world. The total value of grant writing made easy is $6,547. But wait, I'm not going to charge you that, but I do want to go over why this course is so valuable. The full Grant Writing Made Easy course, everything that I just went over with you, is a $3,300 value. In addition to that, I have 5 bonuses for you that I'm offering during this webinar. The first is 30 days of writing exercises. These go beyond teaching you how to write grants and actually help you improve the quality of your writing. That is a $97 value. Bonus number 2 is instant access to the members only Grant Writing Made Easy Facebook group. That is a $500 value. Bonus number 3 is a coupon for GrantStation that will allow you to get 1 year of access for $99. Normally, 1 year of access is $699. And GrantStation is the online grants database that I mentioned earlier and that I use for all of my client work. Bonus number 4, you get, in addition to all of the content online, you get 11 live writing workshops each year. That's a $1,650 value per year. And finally, this is new. Bonus number 5, you get quarterly content updates to the course. That's a $400 value per year. And this is content like strategic planning and grant readiness. It can be workbooks, it can be videos, it can be live sessions, it can be combinations of all of that, templates. Basically, what this content does is help you improve not only your grant writing further, but your nonprofit work. With all of that in mind, I'm asking you, are you ready to write successful grants again and again? If you are, I'm inviting you to join me inside Grant Writing Made Easy. And I am opening this course up to you today during this webinar only for the price of $97 and then $10 per month for continued access. Now that access, you can stop at any time by emailing us and just saying, hey, I don't need the course next month. We can cancel your access or suspend it and you can pick it back up later. But keep in mind, in that first month, you've only paid $97 and you can go ahead and download all of the materials inside the course. And that is yours to keep. To join today at this price, you can go to the link shown on your screen, bit.ly/join GWME now. So that's bit.ly/join GWME now. You can also click on that Join Now button that's popping up for you. And once this deal is over, once your webinar discount is over, this price goes up to $297 and then $20 a month. Once you click on that link, you're going to go to the final step. I try to make this as easy as possible for you, which is the checkout page. Now, once you complete this order form and it goes through, you will be sent 2 emails, one of which will give you all the login information to the course. Within 15 minutes, you should have both of these emails, allowing you to immediately access everything that I just told you about for the course. Now let's talk cancellation policy. I mentioned this earlier. If you no longer need access at any point, you can cancel your next monthly payment and all monthly payments to follow by emailing our support team at support@writegoodco.com. If you want to pick your membership back up later, we can do that. You just pick up the monthly fee again. And that monthly fee gets you just continued access to everything in the course, continued access to the monthly workshops, continued access to the quarterly content updates, and to the Facebook group. So again, just going back over this course is a total value of $6,547. I've got the breakdown here for you again, showing how that splits up over the course and the 5 bonuses. So if you're ready to join us today, head on over to bit.ly/join GWME now, or just click that offer button that says join now. Now I would like to share some student testimonials from Grant Writing Made Easy, because before you sign up today, I want you to be 100% sure that this course will get you the results you're looking for. So here is our first student, Ginger Anya Dela, founding artistic director at the New City Stage Company, and she emailed this to me after she had just started Module 1. She had not even gone through the entire course yet. She was just in Module 1, and she said, I actually have a certificate in fundraising from NYU, but this course is already providing more value than what I got from them for $3,000 a class. Next, we have Trina Boyd, founder of Women in Power, Inc., and she is so great about sharing her wins in our closed Grant Writing Made Easy Facebook group. And so this first image is of her with a check that she received, a grant from Walmart. And these are just 2 of her posts. She's had a lot of posts on here. But I just love showing this happy image of her with a check as an example of what this course can help you do. Then the next post was about a month later, and she said that she was just approved for a huge grant. She said she's scared to say the amount, but this is our 3rd grant approval since being in this program. And she says here, advice, just follow the steps and proofread. Just to think I wasn't even going to apply for this grant. Someone on this group posted the announcement. Yes, so we post grant opportunities that we hear about that we think might be good for some of our members. I kind of try to keep a running list in my head of different types of organizations and different types of work you all are doing. And when I see something that I think would be good for you all, I post it in the group. So she saw that post, applied, and won. This is from Amy Grimes, an independent grant writing consultant who is in Grant Writing Made Easy. And she said that as a grant writing consultant, so working with different nonprofit clients, she wanted additional support since the only previous experience she had was in grad school. And so she wanted to learn a more streamlined approach to writing grants as well as improve her writing. She said she loves the course's narrative approach to writing and the monthly workshops. She said her favorite thing is that she doesn't feel alone anymore in her work. And I think that's what a lot of students have expressed to me, is that now they have a community that they can turn to and get help from. She said, if someone who wants to learn grants asked me if they should take Grant Writing Made Easy, I would say, do it. As mentioned, I had a graduate course on grant writing, but it cannot compare to having the ongoing support that GWME gives. Being able to ask questions and get feedback while in the midst of any part of the grant writing process is what makes it so worth it in my experience. I was feeling a little lost and overwhelmed with organizing my grant writing, and this course was exactly what I was needing for support. This is Dr. Melissa Perrault, Associate Professor at Florida International University. She is in Applied Linguistics. And she joined my course when I first released it back in 2016 and has been an active member ever since. And she has now, at this point, for her research and development of a phone application to reduce the word gap called Háblame Bebé, she has won $660,000 in research grants after having never won a grant before taking the course. So here's what she said. While I attend all of my academic institutions' workshops on grant writing, as well as the online trainings from federal organizations, it is hard to synthesize all of these sources' information to one's own personal proposal. I highly recommend Grant Writing Made Easy. Besides getting access to funding sources, it forces you to practice the art of grant writing. She goes on to say, I learn best with specific examples, and this is what Grant Writing Made Easy does. I am grateful for what I've learned and for the personalized feedback and interaction. As an academic, this source has by far been the best means by which I've learned to become a better grant writer. And one of the things that Missy did early on especially was she came to every single workshop that we offered. And she just continued to grow and thrive. And I'm now just blown away by all she's done with grants. Here is another student, Heather Morrigu. She is actually in Canada, in Alberta, and she has shared several times about winning grants for her church. As soon as she took our webinar, before she even joined our class, she applied the principles from our webinar and won a grant. Then she went on to win a second grant after doing more work in the course, which she talks about here. And you can see she's included the award letter here, and then she asks a question from the group, and then the group answers it. So that's the kind of support that we like to give. And then on the right-hand side, on March 3rd, you can also see that she had her biggest one ever, $70,000 for a charity, and she says, thank you so much for this course. So Heather went on from writing grants just for her church to writing grants as a grant writing consultant for different nonprofits. So that is another thing a lot of people in our course have ended up doing. Okay, and then here is our last one. This is from Carolyn Tague, founder of the Lamongo Project. And she says, every lesson is filled with valuable information. So far, I would say an important takeaway is learning to be specific in my responses. She also says she values the live sessions. I've attended 2, and you have given me very helpful feedback. I also like the way in which you've structured the course. This course walks you through the steps of grant writing and provides tons of support along the way. So if this is resonating with you right now, I invite you to join me and these students you just heard from, as well as hundreds of others, inside Grant Writing Made Easy. You can use the link down at the bottom of your screen, or you can click on that offer button that's popping up for you right now. So during this webinar only, you can get access to this course for $97 today, then $10 a month to follow, and then you can cancel that monthly access and payment at any time if you wish. Once this webinar is over, the price will increase. Our normal price for the course is $297 and then $20 a month to follow. So again, I would love to have you in this course. If you are someone who wants to learn to write grants for the first time or wants to improve your grant writing success rate and get bigger awards than ever. I know how difficult it is right now for small to medium nonprofits. I'm tired of seeing the same giant nonprofits, multi-million-dollar nonprofits, getting all the grant funding, sucking up all the air out of the room. I want to help smaller nonprofits with fewer resources to win more grants, because I truly believe you are most in touch with the community and you are most connected to the community. You take into account what they say they need and what they truly need, and that is what I want to see thrive. That is what I want to see supported by these huge funders. So if that is what you want, I invite you again to join me and all of these other wonderful students inside Grant Writing Made Easy, because the work you do is so important and it does deserve to be funded. If you need help ordering or have any questions, please email us at support@writegoodco.com and we will be more than happy to help you. I have a quick question for you, or questions. If all this course did was finally get you just one successful grant application that brought in $10,000, would it be worth it? If all this course did was lower your grant writing costs to a few $100s, rather than paying up to $150 an hour to hire a contractor or $50,000 a year to hire a full-time grant writer, would it be worth it? If all this course did was help you get in front of more grant makers who are invested in your mission and pique their interest in your work, would it be worth it? Now I'm going to start the countdown on this offer. So once this countdown is done, this webinar discount of one payment of $97 instead of one payment of $297 is going to close. I'm also going to take this time to answer your questions. This is your time to ask me questions. Please do take advantage of it. I'm here with you and I would love to help you. So let's go ahead and get started, and I want to get the first question we have here, which is a very common one. And the question is, how long will it take to get through your program? Well, Grant Writing Made Easy is totally self-paced. As soon as you purchase the course, you can access all of the course content. I find that if students dedicate just a few hours each weekday, it usually takes about 1 week to work through each module and complete the section of the grant that corresponds to that module. However, the course is designed with working people in mind, so it allows you to decide for yourself what you need to work on. So for example, in the Statement of Need module, I teach research and research writing as I would in a university writing course, which means it's pretty in-depth. But if you already feel confident in your research, you may skim over that section and focus on the clarifying your argument section through writing exercises. So it really depends on you and how fast you want to go through it. Okay, so here is another question. It's, how do I know if I'm right for your program? This is another great question because I don't want anyone to take this course if they are not going to benefit from it. My goal for you in Grant Writing Made Easy is always to increase your grant award rate and the dollar amount of the grants you're winning. So here's how I can tell if that is you. 1, you have never written a grant proposal and need to learn how to find a grant opportunity, conduct research for it, write it, revise it, and edit it. This course will teach you everything you need to know to get from start to finish. This course might also be a good fit for you if you have dabbled in grant writing but haven't had a ton of success. So, you know the basics and might even have a few grant opportunities that you want to apply for, but you need help developing your writing skills, understanding some of the intricacies of more complex grant applications, and just need someone to guide you through getting to that next level. Now, I want to shout out some of the folks who have already purchased. So we have Tammy, Victoria, James, Brenda, and Diana. Welcome, and I can't wait to see you inside Grant Writing Made Easy. So, those are folks who have already purchased at this point, and I'm going to keep reading names off as we go. Okay, great. Here's another question. Will I be able to ask you questions? So ask me questions if I get stuck in the course. Yes, you definitely will. We have an active Facebook group where you can ask me questions about the course, post general questions about grant writing to the group, even request feedback on your writing from your other classmates. So remember those peer review sheets that I was talking about? That's how you find people to exchange them with. So my students tell me this is one of the most valuable assets of the course. They know that I will always answer the question, whether on Facebook or email. If you have a technical issue with the course itself, that's something we can also easily take care of over email. Now, the live online writing workshops allow you to see other members' writing get drafted and revised in real time on the screen, and you can have your own writing drafted and revised as a group. So it's a learning process. It's not like a consultant working on it and doing everything for you, but we'll focus on specific parts and help you work on them. You also get to talk to me and your classmates and even see them on camera. And this is where a lot of the awesome work of the course happens. However, you will not get behind if you miss any of the workshops. None of them will be focused on just one particular section of the grant. It's basically whatever people come in with, we do the writing together. So you can miss many months if you want to. You can always catch the replay of it. Just like in a webinar, you'll be able to catch the replay as soon as it's over. So don't feel stressed about making every one of those monthly workshops, and you'll have access to it in the years to come. So don't worry at all. Okay, here's another great question. Do you have to buy GrantStation access to succeed in the class? No, you definitely do not. Although I have a lot of members who do buy the access, and it's tremendously helpful, I also have students who either have a different database they pay for already, or they go to a library to access Foundation Center's database for free. One of our members, Nicole, who raised a lot of startup funding for her new nonprofit through small grants, actually went that route and went to the Foundation Center's database at her local library, and that was very fruitful for her. Also, we have a lot of academic and business grant writers who would not benefit from GrantStation as much as nonprofit workers, so they typically come in with some grant in mind, or they use grants.gov and free academic databases that I list in the course to find grant opportunities. So that was a great question. Okay, so I'd like to share some other folks who have just joined us. We have Gary, Daphne, Tamika, and Sarah. Welcome to the course. We are so excited to have you join us. So it's really an honor to be in the company of all of these wonderful, smart, nonprofit leaders, academic researchers, and artists. And I would love for you to be in their company. So I'm going to close out by welcoming a few more people who have just joined us in the course. Welcome, Casey and Janine. We're so excited to have you. And if I didn't mention you by name, that's because I was trying to get through all of the questions. But thank you so much for joining us if you did. I so look forward to seeing some of you inside Grant Writing Made Easy. We are going to have a lot of fun together. Now, for everyone else, I wish you the best of luck with your grant writing.